szépen. Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Some quick announcements. Mrs. Rajat and Mr. Gilbert could not be here due to work commitments. Mr. Jalal had a family commitment, so the three of them are not going to be here. But we definitely have four for a quorum. Before we proceed any further, I would like to speak some comments made from our previous meeting. Both speakers conveyed their comments with more than an inflammatory tone, which is allowable, but really not in the spirit of what we do here. We're all about improving the educational experience of our students by a deliberate, respectful conversation. I'll speak about the tone later, but I do want to comment back on each speaker first. Regarding the first speaker with a complaint, they were breaking the law on the use of pesticides. We reviewed his detailed packet of comments and determined we are not breaking the law, but as we have communicated before on this issue, we recognize that we are not completely compliant, and we're taking actions to ensure full compliance. The district has spoken with a representative of the New York State Education Office of Facilities Planning. This conversation has led in turn to more information sharing via web link with the Department of Environmental Conservation site, and we're making provisions to get further guidance on Chapter 85 of the laws of 2010 regarding emergency application of pesticides. We will also be working with the BOCES risk specialist to identify other ways of treating our fields and not violate the spirit or the letter of the law. If an emergency resolution is ever warranted, we'll be sure to comply with applicable laws and regulations. So that's our answer back to the first speaker. Regarding the second speaker with a complaint, we are not communicating on student safety. Contrary to our opening statements, we are proactively communicating our safety measures via a link on our website. If you go into shenet.org, go to Department Services, then Safety, Health, and Wellness, and then Safety and Security, you will be able to see a full layout of everything we're doing with safety, communicated to the public via that link. Contrary to a request to obtain notes and minutes on our safety meetings via FOIL requests, we will not provide these by law because such meetings do not meet the FOIL criterion. It's important to point out that within the packet she presented, all other law enforcement agencies that she requested a FOIL response explain the same thing. So we don't disclose meetings that we have on the topic. We don't talk about the specifics because it's a safety measure that in the hands of the wrong people would come back to harm us and harm our students. What we can point out is that we continue to treat student safety as our most critical priority. We meet within our schools, hold training with law enforcement agencies to ensure we continue to get this right and continuously improve on it. This is not something that you could ever be perfect on, but you have to be perfect in how you always want to improve it. So far, we've held 5 SAVE meetings in the last school year, 1 SAVE meeting held so far this year with more to follow, 1 building walkthrough and 3 evacuation drills held since May of this year, 8 training sessions held between school staff and law enforcement since mid-August 2018, and 19 other safety meetings within the district since January of 2018, where district representatives have met with federal, state, county, and local law enforcement and first responders in an effort to improve upon safety measures. So we're doing a lot. We just can't talk about the specifics other than what's on the link. So in summary, we believe our district's work here demonstrates safety remains our critical priority, and we're going to continue to approach this while supporting future improvements made by deliberate planning and careful thought. So the comments above relate to specific discussion points brought forward by both speakers. But I would also like to point out just the level and tone and how these comments were brought to the board. Both speakers conveyed their concerns wrapped in inflammatory comments, but also with personal anger, conveyed a desire to defame our superintendent, and that's just not right. Public comments at our meetings provide an unrestricted forum for members of the public to present their concerns. Just because it lacks restrictions does not mean that a comment becomes more compelling or carries more weight by making such threats that we're breaking the law or someone must be fired. In many cases, it simply alienates us because we work here continuously on behalf of student education. All of us know that we are far from perfect and welcome anyone who uses public comment to convey their concerns in a respectful manner. However, so many comments in the manner that we saw 2 weeks ago just really weakens your argument, so please don't do it. It doesn't work. Please consider we communicate that, and I found it ironic that the day after the meeting I had a a session with Capital Region Student Leadership Forum, and this was with students not just from our district, but from other districts. And the topic that I spoke to 4 sessions was, how do you get a concern as a student in front of the board? And basically, what we all pointed out to them is that the better way, just present it to the board in a simple conversation during public comment. If you don't feel it's ready for public comment, talk to somebody. Someone in the district, someone on the board, to get a sense of how your comment might be conveyed, might be conveyed better, or how it would be inferred. So we're not really meeting the spirit of what we do here with those two sessions. I'm concerned about it. In the future, we will consider additional actions to address commentary such as we saw 2 weeks ago. It doesn't work for us, and it's really not what we're all about. And final, our community has a right to open comments during public session. We're never going to deny the ability to come up, of anybody to come up here and speak as a member of the district, but also every individual in our community deserves a right that they not become a target of someone's misplaced anger simply by taking advantage of this open forum. That's not right either. So we'll figure it out. I look forward to working with the board to come up with some specific ground rules and hopefully move forward at that point. Thank you very much. At this point, adopt an agenda. Can I have a motion? Mrs. Miller, second. Mrs. Hoffman, all in favor? Okay. Agenda adopted. I'll turn it over to Dr. Robinson. Before we do that, this is a study session meeting designed for the purpose of having administrative updates to the board. No public comments on study session. Residents may attend the next scheduled business meeting on December 11th and or contact the board by email at boe@shenet.org with comments or questions. All questions come to the Office of Public Information Officer and share with the board and their superintendent as appropriate. Policy questions, concerns, typically addressed to the board president. Operational questions, concerns, typically addressed by the superintendent and or designee. I think I'm done.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Presley. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Presley. I'm thanking him now. Hopefully, I won't be hating it later. He just informed me that he's been very sick all week and dragged himself out of bed to come to the board meeting tonight. So with that being said, move a little closer this way. Okay. But on a very serious note, on similar sentiments to you and the entire board members, thank you very much. As we look to celebrate Thanksgiving, I want to thank you for your unwavering commitment to this district. And I've said it many times that oftentimes people don't really appreciate the level of involvement and time commitment of members of the board to be aware, to be involved, to help positively impact many things that we do as a school community. Just as an example, left Mrs. Hoffman from one meeting. She was running to do something else to come here tonight. Just a quick example of those type things. And so we have a lot of commitments. I want to say thank you on behalf of the entire Shen community for your service to this community and to this board. And certainly, Mr. Presley, thank you for reading that statement on a very personal, professional level. I really appreciate that, because I think that as a school district, we work very hard to do the right things and to do the right things all the time. Kelly DeFisciano, who's our communications specialist, is fond of saying that, you know what, and when we don't get it right, we'll be the first person to say that we don't get it right, but we're going to try to do it right. Again, so I really appreciate those sentiments, and hopefully as we move forward, we'll have greater appreciation, understanding by those who may misinterpret what we're trying to do or want to do and are doing. So thank you very much for that. And thank you very much for our student rep. Here we are, you know, if I'm thinking if I was her and I have an extended vacation period, I think I probably come up sick this board meeting, but she was here, and also our Senate rep, she was here earlier. And I informed her that we won't have a space to speak, that she probably should go home early. She was so disappointed to leave, but finally she decided to go. So again, the students are modeling the type of commitment that we expect from the adults. And with that being said, it's a great transition then to recognition tonight. Is Mr. Coleman here yet? Mr.
He just called me. He said he ran into an issue, and he's on his way.
Okay. Okay, so let's just delay that for a second then. So we'll delay the first piece then, and we'll go to our enrollment forecast. So as Mr. Miller comes forward, if you see on the agenda, we have several presentations tonight, and it's a study session, and it's an opportunity for us to update the board, and I'll get back to our character edge recognition piece and give that the proper service once Mr. Coleman shows up to do that with Mrs. Frank as well. So we'll get back to that in a second. One of the things that we have done, Bob, you want to shift over?
Bob, what a tie.
Thank you.
That's a tie.
I would have to do that.
One of the things that we look forward to this meeting for many reasons, but one reason in particular is to look at our enrollment projections. for years, for decades actually, Shannon has committed to every year do an enrollment projection, to always looking out. And it's also indicative of our perspective, always looking at what does the future hold for us. And so tonight's enrollment projections not only to give us some sense of what we may think our enrollments would look like in the next year or so, but as the board knows, we're in the process of, we just reconvened the Futures Committee. And a lot of this information from this report is actually also part of our Futures Committee report, that we look at things such as what does the next 7-10-year horizon look like in terms of new facilities and things of that nature. So this information is used in many, many different ways. So we always look forward to having this report being presented. So are you all set, Bob?
Almost. Trying to get the proper rendering of it. It's showing not as large as it is, and it shows. Mark, you got any suggestions?
It looks fine on the screen.
Oh, it does. Yeah, perfect.
Here.
There you go. I wasn't aware of that.
Too smart.
Yeah. So each year, the district contracts for many years now. The district is contracted with the Capitol Regional Planning Commission, and Mark Castiglione is the executive director of it. We've had Dan Harp come. You may remember Dan. We've had Dan Harp come for several years before that. We had Joanna, and she was here for a while. So they've had some turnover, so we'll get lucky. We get the executive director to come and do the presentation. So Mark's going to walk you through this. And Mark, I can work this, or you can?
No, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, so you're going to have to get a little closer up there, and you can use this ledge.
All right, well, thanks, Bob. And I made Bob a little nervous because I waited till today to send him the final presentation, and that's not always the case. But it's, again, due to staff turnover at the CDRPC. We lost Dan Harp to the U.S. Census, so they've gained a really good candidate to help with a very important task that we have coming up in the next 2 years. So school enrollment projections. So I'm a regional planner, and we always try to look out, help communities plan for their future, and getting a handle of your population, not just in your municipality, but also particularly in your school district, helps you more wisely invest your resources. And I think that's part of what underpins the desire of this school district to have enrollment projections. The Regional Planning Commission was founded in 1967 by Albany, Rensselaer, Saratoga, and Schenectady counties to work on projects that tie communities together. We live on a regional scale. Our environmental resources know no municipal boundaries. Our roadway systems, our economy is all connected as a region. We live in one community, we work in another, and we shop in a third. So we definitely live on a regional scale. So today's presentation, you're familiar with the traditional outline. We're going to be taking a look at actual enrollment versus what we projected last year to show you that we're actually doing a good job at this every year. We're going to dig into enrollment trends over time. We're going to look at trends in the birth rate, which is a key indicator in planning for future enrollment and enrollment impacts in the district. We're going to take a look at housing data and speculate a little bit on what changes in housing in your school district mean for the future of enrollment in the district. And we're going to finally present what we think is going to happen in the next 5 years of enrollment in the district. So this is a new slide this year, but I wanted to just take a moment to explain the methodology of our school projection enrollments. We use what's called a survival multiplier. And essentially, it sounds a lot more complicated than really what it is. It's basically, you take a look at all the first graders who start the year in year 1, and you look at all the second graders who start the year in year 2, and you create a ratio that defines the difference between those two, and that's called the survival multiplier. So we have data that goes back to 1980 on your survival multipliers for your district. And we have established 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year averages of what those survival multipliers are. And we use that to make our projections. These projections do not include what are called demographic multipliers. And those are multipliers that are assigned to situations where there's housing influx or unusual housing influx, I'll say. So each housing unit, whether it's single family, multifamily, is assigned a demographic multiplier that is used in some projections. We don't do that because we have not seen anything that's out of the norm in terms of growth in housing in this school district. Housing continues to grow. but for this area of the region, it's not unusual, and therefore we rely on survival multipliers. So you can't see this in the back, but I will relay what the numbers say. Year over year, actual versus projected, we did a pretty good job. Dan Harp did a pretty good job last year. The K through 5 population is slightly under than what we projected by 77 students, and the 9 through 12 population is slightly over than what we projected by 35 students. The 6 to 8 was pretty much spot on. That's, 1 year comparison. So the recent enrollment trends, and this shows your 20-year enrollment numbers, not quite 20 years, almost 20 years. So this shows your lows and your highs and where we are now. So your low was way back in 2000, 2001 of 9,042. Your high was back in 2008, 2009 when we were all young. And this year's enrollment is 9,725. It is 103 students less overall than you had in the district last year. So one of the key things that we take a look at, and one of the grades that has a cascading impact throughout the rest of the projection in terms of how we look at the projection and what trends we see, is the kindergarten enrollment. And kindergarten enrollment, obviously, if you have a small kindergarten enrollment in 1 year, you're likely to have a small first grade enrollment and so forth and so on throughout the projection. So as we look at the kindergarten enrollment, we really take to heart how that is going to impact the model as we walk through the year. This year's enrollment is 574. While it is higher than the 2017 numbers, if we rewind to 2013, which is what we look at for births to predict enrollment in kindergarten, the survival ratio between the kids that were born in 2013 and the number of students that were enrolled was actually worse than the previous 2 years. So while kids are being born in the district, not as many of those kids are actually enrolling in kindergarten. So here's the 20-year trend as compared to the overall enrollment, and this is a pretty cool line graph because you can see how the changes in the population echo through the total enrollment over time.
The bubble, as far as the population bubble, with kindergarten going down and the number going up, then that means the bubble has to be in the high school or the older upper grades.
Right, so you see here, there's that where the gap widens. You'll notice that, and again, the black line is the total enrollment in the district, and the green line is the enrollment in kindergarten. So as you see the kindergarten go up, you see in later years the total enrollment in the school district goes up, creates a gap. Starting in 2009, 2008, 2009, you see the highest enrollment in kindergarten, and then it starts to decline. And now you're starting to see a decline in enrollment in this year, in 17, 18, and 18, 19 year. So that could be directly a result to the decline in kindergarten enrollment in 2008, 2009. I feel like I know more about your school district than my own school district that I grew up in after having done this projection. So 6 to 8 enrollment. This has been the most volatile cohort that we took a look at. But again, you can see relationships between the kindergarten enrollment, and you can also see relationships and sort of predict what's going to happen, obviously, with the 9 through 12 enrollment. This cohort had a low of 2148 way back in the 2000-2001 school year, and a high in the 13-14 school year of 2453. You'll notice in the next cohort projection, the 9 through 12, that the high of 2453 back in 2013-2014 is now echoing in the 9 through 12 cohort, because this year was that cohort's highest enrollment ever. So this shows the 9 through 12 enrollment, which has been steadily increasing since 2000, 2001. And again, this year was its highest enrollment ever. Now, will that continue? Will the the line going up continue? Well, we don't think so in this projection. And the reason why are the things I've mentioned before. It's the cascading effect of the earlier grades and how they impact later grades. And so the key indicator that we look at, and I mentioned, is birth rates in the district and the survival multiplier between how many kids are being born in the district and how many kids enroll in kindergarten. So the trend line here is pretty clear. This graph shows total births in the district. And we go from a high of 760 back in 2004 to a low back in 2015 of only 505. I'm sorry, 606, not 505. We are projecting that trend continues. With this data, the State Health Department only makes data available on a 2-year lag. So the most recent data is 2016 that's available. So we actually have to estimate what the births are going to be for 17 and 18 so that we can run them through our model. This year we estimated the birth rates conservatively to be 640. We have not seen birth rates above, on average, 650. We see the trend line going down, so we averaged the last 5 years and then moved it down slightly to reflect what we see as the ongoing trend. So we already took a look at the kindergarten enrollments. Again, while you take a look at, if you go back, the 18-19 enrollment of 574, if we think back in our minds to the previous slide, if I knew how to go back, you would see that there was actually a higher birth rate in 2013 than there was in the previous year, so that accounts for this slight uptick year over year. All right. Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Multi-talented superintendent.
Glenn, did you get that?
So one of the things, well, I mentioned that when we run our projections, they're really based on the survival multipliers, and a key context of your decision making in this district is what's happening with residential development. So this is the residential development trend since 1980. So the green bars are the decennial census information about the number of housing units you have in the district. The number of housing units has been steadily increasing, which is no surprise. We do have more granular data from the 2012-2016 ACS from the census, and that shows the more colorful bar on the right-hand side of the graph. What's not surprising also is that the majority of your housing stock in the districts, more than 60%, is single-family homes. Single-family homes tend to generate more children of school age than multifamily housing. It is worthy of note, though, that the trend for multifamily housing has been increasing even in this district. But it really remains to be seen whether or not multifamily housing is going to generate as many, or at least in the same realm of children that single-family housing units do. There has been an overall change, and there's a market for these multifamily housing units. There's some speculation that both older people and millennial generations that are having children who may not be able to afford a down payment on a house in a good school district will want to locate in a multifamily unit to send their kids to a good school district. Again, all speculation until we have the numbers through the census. Another key indicator in what's going on in the district are housing sales. So in this graph shows housing sales 2014 through 2018, and it tells the story that housing sales are heating up in the district. Median home values of existing home sales have been increasing from about 280,000 average home to 320,000 in this year. And you can see the steady trend line going up in terms of home sales in the district. In 2017, it was 1,010 houses sold in the district. And while the line that shows that that trend is decreased this year, it only decreased because we only had data through October. But this year's number is also trending to either meet or exceed the 2017 number. And it's an important thing to monitor because as we see more existing home sales and we see a change in the survival multipliers, particularly between births and kindergarten, and that's a good indicator that new families are moving into the district. We also have a decennial census that's coming up, and that will give us a new profile, a more exact profile of the families and people that are living in the district. What's interesting with the existing homes in the district, and I'm sure you're all aware of, is that many of them are occupied by families that do not have school-age children, who may be retirees. The number of percentage of households that have married couples with related children has been on the decline since 1990, and that trend continues. So you can't see these numbers either, but these are the grade-to-grade projections. And the story that they tell is really a slight change. They predict in the out years a slight decline in overall school enrollment. Again, there are cascading impacts on lower enrollment in the early grades, and we project those out to carry through into the upper grades. So the story is this year the total enrollment is 75-25, and we're predicting a decline in the 2023 and 24 school year of 92-57.
I have a question about
Yes.
this one. So this one confuses me because you have 2018-19 data, so you have a good idea what it's going to be next year when you roll the grades up. But like for many of them, you have a lower projection for the next year if you look at the prior year grade.
Mm-hmm.
So like for next year's seniors, it's showing 680 students, but this year's juniors, there's 762 students.
Right. That
So
could
why do you do
be an error in the model.
Okay.
Now, the model's not perfect, and again, we rely on those 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year survival multipliers.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, probably would have justified an adjustment to those survival multipliers, because again, we're looking at the historical trends of enrollment and
Right.
survival in those grades. It's important to point out, I think, that our forecasts have been relatively accurate, but the most inaccurate recently in the upper grades, in the 9th through 12th grades, because they're experiencing a historic high, and that historic high hasn't been factored into the survival multipliers year over year. So this is what that modest change looks like. So it's a modest decline over the next 5 years. As we look through the cohort declines, this is K through 5 enrollment, projected a slight uptick. And that again relates to what our predictions are in terms of a slightly higher birth rate in 2014 than there was in 2013. But again, following the overall trend in lower birth rates and lower enrollments in kindergarten, projecting a lower population for the overall cohort. 6 to 8, you're seeing a slight increase because there is a slight bubble in the kindergarten population at the moment, which will carry through to the 6 to 8 population. And this is another major story. We're predicting that this year is going to be the high for the 9 through 12 enrollment. And then that enrollment will slowly decline in the out years. So what does it look like on a map as compared to what we've done before? So the top line is our 2016 enrollment, the middle line is our 2017 enrollment projection, and the green line is this year's projection. Now projections always have, they always take the existing data and then project out. Obviously, that's what projections are. So sometimes having multiple projections will give you a better sense and a better handle on what's actually going to happen in the future. So if we have multiple years of projections and there's a line in the middle, in terms of planning, you often look at the line in the middle, the line that shows the least degree of fluctuation as the most accurate line in terms of projection. So that's school enrollment in the district. Any questions?
I always find this one interesting because and then Bob will come back, and then I kind of go between the two to find out which makes the most sense. Which Bob will actually give you the numbers, so it's always interesting to me. Thank you so much. You know what? I did learn. I understood that survival
Multiplier.
the multiplier better. Thank you for that. I understand the definition on that one now.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mark. Just some comments for public perspective. And I think Mark pointed out, it's a projection. And those out years, there are many factors at play, including the multiplier effect. Now, we know that the kindergarten enrollments birth rates have been low over the years. One of the things that's difficult to factor in and wasn't here is what I call the in-migration effect. We used to call it the global founders effect, when we had many families moving into the community as a result of global founders. So that's one piece that's out there. Another piece out there, and Mark mentioned the increase in housing market, housing sale. We also have an increased market of older existing homes. You know, what I call the Van Patten developments, the country estate, north, south, east, all these different, mega developments that are houses that are 25, 30 years old, 4 or 5 bedroom houses that, while the market value here, looking at a 300 plus thousand, those houses are still reasonable priced. And so that's another fact that we have to look at in terms of what does that mean when those houses, when those houses start turning over, because right now a lot of those houses are being increasingly occupied by empty nesters. And, so you have parents and their kids are off adults, and yet they still living in a 5-bedroom house. And so what happens when those houses start turning over? Who's going to buy that? Typically families, because of lower price point. So we have to take those things into consideration. Another factor that's here too that we kind of hard for us to quantify, but we have to take into consideration even the kindergarten effect. If, or should I probably even say when we go to a full-day K model, what does that mean in terms of attractiveness of different families to the school community as a result of now having a full-day K program? So I share all those with you because this is a great piece of this puzzle that we're trying to put together to see the future and try to be clairvoyant as much as we can. But it's a piece of the puzzle that gives us some insight and some information to help make some inferences as we try to say, what does this look like? For the immediate next year, we have this, and plus we do a lot of our own internal analysis to figure out what's going to be our enrollment staffing needs for next year. That's the short-term easy piece. It's the longer-term piece in terms of when we start planning forward for facilities and those kind of things. What does that actually look like as well? And plus, this also kind of think about your gas gauge on your car, and it just happened to me. You're driving, the little yellow light goes on. You're not going to run out of gas right away, but it's telling you that you need to do something pretty fast before you do. And so this kind of gives us a gauge that are we trending towards what I call the spot where I think as a school district where facilities become a major issue is when we start legitimately hitting that 10,000 plus student mark within the district. That's the spot where we start feeling the squeeze in every place, particularly our secondary buildings, 612 buildings. That's a big piece of it. And the last factor that's not here, too, is that we have a significant number of kids, if I'm not mistaken, by about 1,000 kids between private parochial, 1,200 kids that are living in the district but not going to district schools. So I share all these factors with the board and with the public that I think Mark's point is a very valid one, that it's a projection. If he was able to pinpoint what the next 5 years is going to look like, he wouldn't be here. He'll be in Vegas someplace and doing other things other than doing enrollment forecasting in Clifton Park on a Tuesday night when it's before Thanksgiving. So this is good information, and that's what it is. We're going to use this information to help guide our discussions.
The only thing I wanted to add is that last year, Dan, right?
Yes.
Dan, when he was here, when he talked about the home sales, he pointed out that approaching 300,000 average, there could be a cooling effect. And so it's surprising to see that we're at 320, and it looks like we're going to hit the same number. So one of my questions is that I thought of as you were mentioning that the housing sales is, where are those sales occurring? Do we know if they're Van Patten homes?
No, well, most of those are newer.
New construction.
So here's
1.2 kids or 1.5
And here's another anecdotal piece, too, that was shared with me today. Actually, Dr. Wood shared a anecdotal conversation that she had with some folks from one of our local agencies here that typically support families with socioeconomic needs. And they're finding out that some of the areas that we people have traditionally said, these are the neighborhoods or developments that realize that many of those people aren't even qualifying, they're beyond the threshold for free and reduced lunch. So what you have is people who want to live in the district who may not be able to afford a new home price, but want to live in the district, so they go everything from go into modular homes and things of that nature. That's with a different price point. And so it's an interesting piece because I think we make these stereotypical assumptions about people, economic means by where they live, and the reality of it is sometimes it doesn't line up. In the same way, we see people who live in houses that they literally can't afford and live in it because society says that's where you're supposed to live. And we see that with younger couples. In fact, that's one of the conversations we had, where younger couples are finding it harder to come in and buy, you're a 25-year-old, 30-year-old first job, you're not going to have the down payment for a $300,000 house. So what happens is younger couples live with mom and dad or live in some other type of housing piece where those are some of the factors that's hard to predict, but those are some of the many things out there that we're trying to watch and see, because we want this community to continue to be a very mixed community. We want to be able to have a community where younger couples come in and live, as well as older couples. You see this as a retirement community as well. So that's the trick right now, I think, from the larger regional economic piece. How do we create that balance between senior housing as well as more attractive housing for younger professionals? Because I think that vibrancy is what we need to continue in this community. So more to come, and the futures report, I think, will take this to another level, because we're bringing a lot of different experts in. In fact, we'll be bringing Mark to one of our futures. He volunteered to come to one of our futures committee meetings to talk about this and maybe provide some further insight, not only about Shen, but about the region, some of the things that he's seen regionally that could have a ripple effect. You mentioned you live one place, you work one place, you shop one place. We want to know what about those work one place and shop one places. What are those places, and how does that impact where people live? So we want to look at that as well. So thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate it very much. So Mr. Cullen is here and Mrs. Frank is here. So as I was going to say, I had a great telling line that one of the things that we take tremendous pride in try to model for our students the type of decorum that the board speaks to every night, every board meeting. We model certain decorum, and character education recognition is one of those ways to recognize people who we think are tremendous role models within our school community and our community at large. So at this point, standing in for Mrs. Carmen, Mr. Coleman will be here. Mrs. Frank will also come here to recognize two wonderful recipients.
Thanks, Dr. Hardman. I apologize for running late here tonight. I do want to let everybody know I'm filling in for Becky Carmen as one of the representatives from the Character Education Committee. And I do want to commend Becky's work with the Character Education program, and in particular this program with Maggie. A few years ago, we were approached about an initiative called Boys to Men, which focuses on males having healthy relationships with females. And one of the things that Becky had this idea is that we would pilot this with a couple of our sports teams. And the two coaches who will be recognized here tonight, Jason Gifford and Jason Burlingame, are outstanding coaches for us in the department. Very successful coaches, wins and losses, but I think they're even more successful in terms of the types of kids that they develop, and that they instill character and pride into their athletes. And this program really fit in very well with some of the things that they were doing within their team. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Maggie, who, if she wants to.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I'm the Executive Director of Wellspring, and we are the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Services Agency for our county. And one of the things we do, we certainly help survivors, but more than that, we'd like to change the norms that underlie these kinds of abuse. So Coaching Boys into Men is an evidence-based program that's been used nationally and globally since 2001, but not very many places in New York State are doing it. And so we approached first Jason Burlingame. And Jason, why don't you come up while we're talking about you? When I first approached Jason Burlingame about doing the program, he immediately jumped at the opportunity to influence athletes' values and leadership. This program teaches them, the purpose of the program is to reduce gender-based misconduct, so sexual harassment, dating violence, and sexual assault. But to me, it's a character building and leadership program. And what I love was Jason said, we've got to do this. We've got to do more than just promote excellence in sports. We want to grow youth into confident, capable, and compassionate leaders. And so he immediately said, let's do this. And then right after that, Jason Gifford also jumped on board. And they have approached this program with not just doing the toolkit here with the kids, not having the conversations with the boys every week, but taking it even further, saying, okay, we're having those conversations. We're getting some really good conversations going with the boys. What else can we be doing? And each time I talk to you, you've got more ideas, more projects we can do to change the social norms here in the school and in our world for these boys as they ripple out into the world. So I commend you both for that, and I thought some of the best ways to talk about it is to use your very own words. So Jason Burlingame, one of the things you said to me was, it's an interesting time seeing young people and the challenges they navigate. For them, we have to take a greater role in their lives. And that really, to me, kind of says, I'm more than a coach. It's more than what they do on the field. It's that role modeling and mentoring. And Jason Gifford, when my advocate went to the first time when you were talking to the boys, it was a hard conversation for that very first kind of discussion you had. And just like a coach, when a coach sees a boy and, they can't get the ball in the hoop and the basket, when they can't make the touchdown, when they can't do those kind of things, they don't say, can't do this. They say, let's work onto this together. We're going to be partners in getting you there. And that's what you said to the boys. You just said right there, these are really tough conversations, but we're going to keep having them, and they're going to get easier. So thank you for being our champions for coaching boys into men. But if you're interested, we also have a program for girls teams, Athletes as Leaders. And thanks for giving your heart and your soul and your role model to these boys. Congratulations.
So on behalf of the Sheridan School District, we'd like to present this to both of you. I want to make sure I get the right... Jason G. Jason G. There you go. Jason G. Thank you. Jason Burlingame. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to share a story. So I have a friend who share the details that's not in the school district, but she was sharing with me how her son, and actually I have to be very careful with what details I share, but her son has learning disabilities, and he spends a lot of time with one of their teams, and he's gotten in trouble recently for essentially copying the behavior of his teammates. And we were talking about this and talking about how important it is to be good role models even as students, because other students are watching and mimicking your behavior. And I was so excited to hear with the Shen Runners team, you talking about this program, because I thought this is where it starts. And they look to each other. They look to the upperclassmen. They look to each other, and that's laying the right groundwork at the right time. But thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the entire board does as well.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Great job,
Appreciate
guys.
it. Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it, guys. So we also have, tonight, we have Amy Cullen. Amy is here. And we have a pretty extensive community education and community services program. And sometimes people don't know the person behind the curtain that ensure that, for instance, our facilities, if you drive through campus on any given day, we have some kind of utilization going on. And it's a very well orchestrated system. And Amy's here with her assistant as well, new to the district, and adding tremendous value since she's been here. So I'm going to turn over to Amy to talk about some of the things we're doing in community services and community ed.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to just give you a little bit of information and update on our office and things that we do. We are actually comprised under Becky Carmen as the Director of Community and Policy Development. We are community education, and we're also facility use and volunteer programs. So we kind of do a lot of different things. The Community Education Office is Kim Pottenberg and Julie Keene, and they do a lot of coordination in terms of adult education courses and driver education courses. They're always kind of judging to see what the community might want and doing research and figuring out what courses will best meet the needs of the community. So they do end up with new courses each year. This spring there were 16 courses, in the fall there were 11. They did do quite a few, actually it's quite an extensive adult education program because they have 69 classes in the spring and 64 in the fall. That's quite a few opportunities and a wide variety of topics as well. And they also do the driver education program, and Jim Orden, one of our staff members, is in charge of that and kind of keeps his thumb on the state ed requirements and things. So they definitely have their hand in what is wanted by the community and what is needed by the community. And so that office works on that. Our office is the facility use component, as Dr. Robinson said. There is an awful lot going on in the school buildings at nights and on weekends, which is really quite an awesome thing. We have, our main goal for our office is to build relationships with the community. It is not just facility use, who's using what room at what time, but to build relationships with the community, and a major part of that is the communication with those groups. They are our community. They are a part of the overall picture of Shen, and we kind of act as a liaison for those groups. We grew quite a bit over the last 10 to 15 years. As an event being a particular activity in a particular room at a particular time, we grew from about 9,000 events in 2004 to over 28,000 events now this past year. So there's quite a growth in the use of the buildings and the ability to have people in our buildings and part of our community. That being said, we're always trying to think of new ways to meet those needs and make it more efficient. And so we are heading in a process to do an online request system for facility use, kind of phasing out the paper forms and the long process of copying and that kind of thing, and doing more of an online request system to make it easier for the public and for the school groups as well to submit those requests and have an even quicker turnaround time. We now really serve everybody in terms of facility use, not just the community, but also the school groups. And we kind of work with every single building to facilitate all of those activities. Along those lines, we also work with custodial staff and the facility staff looking at security of the buildings at nights and on weekends. So we're now looking at where the activities are going to take place, trying to compartmentalize activities in certain areas so that the whole building isn't open and we can secure parts of the building at night and on weekends. It's obviously based on what the needs are for those particular activities, but as best we can, we're trying to compartmentalize those. And we use the technology as much as we possibly can to keep those lines of communication open. So as Dr. Robinson can tell you, we started with snow already this year before Thanksgiving, and we did a lot of communication over the last couple of days in terms of whether events were going to take place or not. And I always felt that, as much communication as possible is a good thing. So we use social media, we use email, phone, meetings, etc., to keep those lines of communication open. And then lastly, we do have something to do with the volunteer program, Friends of Shen. As much as the administration and the teachers are looking for volunteers, we try to match volunteers that come our way with existing programs in the district and try to make those relationships there as well. So,
Is that new?
Friends of Shen, the last 5 years maybe, but it's changed a bit in terms of what the needs might be in the classroom. So we're trying to match, and we did do some matching this summer with residents at Coburg Village with
More
the
intergenerational kind of things?
yeah, with the summer programs. We do try to match them college students. There's a lot of community service components now in universities and colleges, and so we'll match those needs with particular areas, science, all the different areas that there might be an interest, and we try to match them with some of the staff, and hopefully that works out in terms of their timing and their schedule.
So just want to make one comment. Amy mentioned here about building relationships. Probably one of the greatest, certainly the newsletter and all the stuff that Kelly does, social media to promote the budget, is by far our most widely used tool. Probably second to that is, quite frankly, Amy's list from facilities use, because we have people who have a vested interest in the district, and to send to all these people about things like budget vote, promote the, come out and vote, those type things become important, because again, we have many people come through our facilities all the time. And so that's the relationship piece that because we all often said at the end of the day, we only go as far as this community is willing to go. And if we have people who see the facilities as a resource for the community, they also have an obligation, if you will, to ensure that those resources can be in place for future users. And as a result, funds that come through our through Amy's department actually goes right back into upkeep of those facilities. So it becomes one of those cost neutral pieces. And sometimes people say, do we have a lot of unnecessary wear and tear? Possibly, but we also bring in a lot of neat things to the school district as a result of that, because it's a reinvestment of those resources within the school, within the community as a whole. So it's been pretty successful over the years and continue to grow, as you saw by the numbers here.
We don't incur an expense as a district for facility use because we more than cover our costs in terms of the facility use fees we charge. And as Jill can tell you, she comes to us from Music Valley, and that was awesome because she has a good picture of districts as a whole, and she does the billing for our office, and it's very clear exactly who we're billing, where we're billing, et cetera, and we have a good thumb on what that looks like and where we need to get the money from. So we're on top of that whole process, and we can use then that money that we bring in to help in the upkeep of the fields and buildings and things. It really has worked out very well.
Great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have here, so Mrs. Carmen has multiplied herself into several individuals tonight. So the other version of Mrs. Carmen, Mrs. Malat, is going to talk about, we've been talking about mental health for a long time, and one of the things we wanted to do just an update by the numbers, so to speak. So Mrs. Malat would provide a brief overview, and if there's specific questions, we'll go into those questions afterwards.
So this presentation is essentially a brief summary of how we are supporting our students who have issues with mental health and how that impacts them in the school setting. We all certainly have mental health like we all have physical health, and that's a continuum. And students vary along that continuum for how successful they are able to manage and deal with stressors in life. So we have been very fortunate to partner with Saratoga Center for the Family. And then we have also been fortunate as a community to be able to add 2 additional student support counselors in the past 2 years, a year and a half, to help support our students as the mental health issues continue to rise. So what we have with our Saratoga Center for the Family is the ability to provide early support for students who are struggling with both trauma and or mental health issues. What this does for us is it decreases the disruption to students' learning. So instead of students having to leave school, go 20, 30 minutes to an appointment, spend an hour at that appointment, come back, that can be a whole or a half a day of interrupted instruction. By having Saratoga Center for the Family here on site, students can go down, they can go for a 30, 45, or an hour-long appointment. It's right on site. So it helps that student have a better educational experience. It disrupts their day less. It's also very convenient for the family to not have to take time away from work. So it's really a win-win for everyone having these services here. The services offer both identification of students with mental health issues, so identification, working with the team of people who work with the students every day, who really need services, what are those services that are needed. They support through group and individual intervention. They also do a lot of support with the school facility in terms of, provided they have consent from the family, but to help have an all-around program for students so that what's going on in therapy can also be supported in the home, can also be supported in the learning environment. So there's a real continuation of services that way. This year, we have expanded our services. So we have Laura Zazada, who is at Coda, Acadia, and Gowanna, and you can see that she is already has a full caseload this year and has students on the wait list. We also have Kristen Johnson at Shattuckon and Orangen, and her caseload has been split because we added services, so she still has room in her caseload, but that's something that we've had ongoing at Orangen and Shattuckon. We now have additional support at High School West and East. Some of that has been ongoing, but we've added staff there because when we started, not everybody was full-time, so people are now full-time. And then we also have a new hire starting December 1st who will work on the Carrigan, Orenda, Scano, Tasago, Octe, and Chango. So a number of those students were able to get their services at Shattuckon, Orangen, and now we have just continued to expand because of the need. And also because word is getting out there that we have the service at school, which again is so convenient for students and for families. Did you have a question?
Yeah. So the ones on the wait list, they're going somewhere else then at this point, or?
Students on the wait list are either being seen somewhere else, but more likely they're waiting for services here. We also do provide support so that students are able to be successful in school the best we can. But in terms of the pure mental health counseling, which is done by licensed mental health providers, they are probably on a wait list, or they could be going physically to Saratoga to get their services there while they wait to be seen here. And I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for that.
No,
but
that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So you can see that the services that are provided at the other elementary schools are, the supervisor of the program is actually providing the services because the new person starts December 1st. So those numbers will go up. Okay, and then we have statistics for 2018-19. So far this year, Saratoga Center for the Family, you can see the numbers. We've had over 1,000 counseling appointments, so that's really huge, and that's a great service that we're providing. And you can see that the most common issues are trauma. We're seeing more and more students enter the district who have experienced trauma, and then anxiety is another really big issue, and mood lability, which is depression, and then early bipolar.
Is it the same at the middle school? Because I saw you at high school and elementary.
The
Or
statistics?
the top issues. Yeah.
Oh,
just
so
wondering
elementary and,
if there was
oh,
any
I see,
distinction
elementary
with-
site.
Yeah.
Yep. I can get that. My guess is there's
It's probably
probably
the
not a
same.
distinction.
Okay.
Yeah. We see a little bit more with the mood as students get older.
Okay.
It's harder to identify true mood disorders in elementary students. It becomes more clear as they go through. Sometimes mood disorders in elementary students can manifest as attention issues or just more of an unhappiness. Okay, then we have added school support staff at both High School East. So we started with Nikki, who is a student support counselor at East last year, and this fall we added someone at High School West. Now the goal of their services is a bit different. The goal is to help students who have issues coming into school, issues staying in class, some issues with attendance, behavior, social skills, getting along with peers. The goal of that is not to have students seen every day, every other day, but to have them come in, help get them stabilized. It's very goal-oriented so that students are back in class. The goal is also to help help support them with more of a mental health program. So if they need more of a mental health counseling, that person might refer them to Saratoga Center for the Family to get that more in-depth mental health counseling, because that's really not the focus of what we provide at school. Our focus is educational and helping those students be as comfortable and successful as possible in the school environment with that support. So we're not really providing that in-depth therapy with school staff. We're providing more of a support on, let's get through the day, what can we do to build in supports through the school, and let's get you back to class. And I'm here for you, but we really want to encourage students to be as active as possible within the school community. You can see from our student center statistics, so High School East, we're lucky enough to have a suite where we have 3 psychologists, we have a social worker, and we have a student support counselor. And students can go in and access support from any of those providers if they need it. Certainly they have certain people they're typically assigned to, but if there's a crisis, there's always someone available. At High School West, we don't have that suite set up yet. That might be a long-term goal of High School West and Mrs. Carmen to look at whether or not we can set something like that up, because it does provide that that central space where students can go. Sometimes they just need a break. But you can see that it's very comparable, the statistics, in terms of how many students are being seen on average by each person at East compared to our new counselor at West, where she's already seen 247 students.
Michelle,
Or had 247 student meetings.
so the social worker at West is
Yes.
akin to the student support counselor at East.
Right. So
Just want to make sure that, so it's not akin to this social worker at East, so it's not, so 2 different roles. Just want to point this out, so this person functions more like this person.
Right.
We have other people at West that provide other services, but for the purpose of the Wellness Center focus, is probably these 2 individuals that you're looking at, more so than not.
Why wouldn't we call it then the student support?
Because of certification people
Okay.
have. She's a licensed social worker.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
Michelle, what
Yeah.
does TCI stand for?
Therapeutic Crisis Intervention.
Oh, that's a program, isn't it?
That is a program, and it is for students who require support because they're unsafe. And it's a very comprehensive training that people who work in some of our specialized programs are certified in. It's a 5-day training, so that the primary focus of that training is de-escalation, helping students calm down, relax, so that they're able to verbalize what's going on inside. As a last resort, some students may need a hold, but that is, the focus of TCI is a verbal de-escalation. And it's very, very intensive training. People who are trained, we have trainers here at school, then have to have recertification every 6 months. So that's something that our social worker does at High School West, and it is a pretty significant portion of her job.
Are you seeing a lot of that?
No. No, we see a lot of verbal de-escalation, but yeah, that is absolutely our focus.
Questions?
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay.
Thanks, Milan. So a lot of things happen to support our students, and certainly last but not least is as Dr. Wood come forward, we have it's interesting how when you look at the presentation and think about it from the lens of a student, and think about where we started this conversation in terms of all the things that we're doing to support the school community. Everything comes right back to that student as the center of all those things, be it options and opportunities that we have with various services within the community, be it looking at our enrollments, where our numbers are going, be it supporting students in their times of need and times of crisis, to now we're shifting the gear where we're talking about how do we pave the way to options for kids after Shen. And so I kind of want you to put that in that context, because everything that we do is related to each other somehow. And so part of what, certainly I spend a lot of time, and Elizabeth spent a lot of time, and the administrators you hear talk about spend a lot of time. I was trying to figure out, what's that big picture we're painting? And what's that piece that we need to either move, redo, repaint, so that picture becomes even clearer? And on the academic side, there are a lot of moving parts, as you can imagine. We offer wide variety of options and courses, and we don't apologize for offering a wide variety of options and courses for our kids. But we're always trying to figure out, as somebody mentioned before, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, it's kind of like you have all the ingredients on the table, they all look yummy, but they're that much better when they put in the right way and mixed together in the right way, and then you really have a meal, versus that you have a whole bunch of ingredients. And so over the years, we are looking at all those ingredients and trying to make the nicer meal, and so again, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, that's what we're trying to do with a lot of the things you hear. So I say that because there's some things that we're doing very well right now. There's some things that you're going to hear that we talk about that we need to do to move forward. And all these things, again, is to try to figure out how do we put it all together so that nice meal is served up to our students and their future is, in fact, brighter because of our efforts. So can you top that, Dr. Wood?
No, and nor will I try. And well said in terms of we are really trying to organize the pantry in some of our work. When we think about, when we're here talking to the board, we're often talking about what's the program we're working on right now, how are our students doing as they progress along the way, be it an AIS program, special needs program, a writing program, whatever. When we also, and we haven't spent as much time talking with the board about it recently, which is what makes this presentation so timely, is what we're doing all through to really prepare students for college and or career. And this presentation is a very brief overview of what we consider to be kind of a three-legged stool. And the three-legged stool is what are the courses that we are offering right now that provide college credit or college credit options. They're actually called dual enrollment courses because students acquire a high school credit, and they also have the option of earning college credit. And it depends on the course. Do they have to, get the 4 or the 5 on the AP exam? Do they have to pay and get the credit and then get the transcript? We know that not all college credits earned in high school are transferable to college, et cetera. But that's the one of the three-legged stool that we're doing in terms of long-term preparation for what comes after high school, is accruing college credit while they're with us, so to set them up for success in whatever comes next. The second leg of that stool is providing career and technical education options while they're with us. And Rose Barrow will speak directly to that as she's working with business, technology, family, and consumer sciences. Those are 3 departments that do a lot of work preparing students for what is to come and career options. And the third leg of that stool of preparing students for college, career, whatever comes next, is the career exploration. And Paul Ripchick is going to speak on behalf of the counseling department K-12 in terms of what we do to expose students to careers. And then we'll wrap it up with Mr. Agostinoni talking about the fact that this doesn't just impact, like one student doesn't take one thing and a whole nother student takes something else, but he'll talk about where it fits in with all of our students really being affected by all of these things as they progress through. All right, this is an overview.
Cute graphic.
Sure, yes. That's our three-legged stool, by the way. Yes.
Or Mickey Mouse.
Or that.
Can I add one thing? We've never seen a presentation like this before, have we?
Not in this.
Usually we've been in the APPR or the, Common Core discussions. This is very refreshing.
Yeah, and we actually had a good time having conversations putting it together, because we were basically, we were going into the pantry saying, well, we're doing this, and we're doing this, and we're doing this, and how do we put it together? So worked with the academic administrators to go into the progressions documents. As you know, the progressions documents are posted under the academic webpage. And we have added an asterisk to every single course that has the potential for college credit. And we have to say potential, because you may take a course as a student and choose not to pay for the credit, which is okay. You may take a course, and it may be an AP course, and you may earn a 4 on that AP exam. You may go to a certain college that says, that is great, every single student here has earned a 4 or 5. Congratulations on earning that 4 or 5. You need to retake that course. You may take that 4 or 5 to another college or university that says, that's great, now you can take another elective. So we went through, and so we used the language very carefully about the fact that they're eligible for college credits, because they are, but under certain circumstances. So it's not a universal, and we don't want to ever bill it as though it's universal. We know it isn't. But in total, we have 43 different courses at the high school alone,
that where students can potentially accumulate college credit and experience success in a college level course here in high school. And you'll notice that that's broken out by department. And the one thing, and not to steal Mr. Agostino's thunder, but I think it warrants repeating again when he comes up, this is not just the profile, these are not just college courses that we align with the profile of students going to Ivy League or taking our upper level AP courses. This is students of all ranges. We would like to be able to experience courses that either directly lead into a college program or lead into a trade program, which Rose Barrow will speak about. So they may not be the AP level, but we want to talk about college courses as accessible to all students here in our system. Okay, moving on to the career and technical specific courses. Good evening. I think this is the first time I'm here in this role. I'm not sure, maybe not. The slide that is up on the screen right now represents all of the elective courses that Shenendehowa offers in our career and technical education umbrella, the business program, the technology program, the family consumer science program. Many of the courses are available for college credit. They are college level or dual enrollment courses. Many of them also offer a work-based learning opportunity for our students. As Dr. Wood mentioned, many of these pantry courses are now organized in our progressions documents. The links are to the progressions documents. I don't know if it's worth opening them. You probably can't see them very clearly now. But in each one of the progressions documents for the elective courses, they're really a roadmap or a guide for the students to help choose their electives based on their interest. So for example, for business, there's really 3 progressions that are outlined here. A general business progression, an accounting or finance progression, and a marketing course progression. And we can go to the next slide. So what we're currently starting to work on is a way to better refine these progressions into more intentional pathways for graduation. New York State Education Department has released guidance to help develop pathways in districts that will lead to a CTE designation on their diploma. And while these pathways are very content specific, there are some components to each one of these pathways that are similar. Each one of the pathways that we look to put together must have some sort of college experience that the students must take. For the sense of developing that sort of agency, oh, this is a college course, it wasn't so bad. Additionally, each one of the pathways that we're starting to look at must have a work-based learning experience for the same reason. Let's give these students an explicit opportunity, an intentional opportunity to start to develop some of those soft skills that they'll see in the workplace. Time management, customer interaction, leadership, teamwork, all of those kinds of skills we want our students to have some exposure to while they're still in high school. We're just starting to develop these pathways. We're looking at pathways in family consumer science that is going to lead to the CTE designation in child studies. The business department, we're looking at possibly a business administration with some flexibility into which courses the students can choose for their college level, and that will end with the CEIP or the career exploration course that the students will take. And in technology, we can't decide, so we'll probably go in parallel with the design and construction that leads to the course where the students are building a home as their capstone, and then the automotive or transportation systems where the students' work experience is actually doing inspections on automobiles in the garage.
What is CEIP?
That's our career exploration in internship program.
Okay.
It is a course that the students take at the end of the day. The 2 business teachers do a wonderful job of pairing the students with an internship based on their interest.
So I was thinking about the 2 slides that I was going to present tonight, one on the curriculum and the other one on the practical opportunities that we have for students. And I was at a state conference last week, and one of the counselors stood up and said, our responsibility is to enroll, to employ, or to enlist our students before they leave here. And I thought about that, and I said, well, that
sounds like a good plan. However, I wanted to add 2 more E's to it. And my 2 E's that I wanted to add was to excite and to explore. We wanted to add those 2 pieces to this model. And as the counselors work with students through their curriculum, that should be their thought process. What is it that I'm going to do to excite these students and explore opportunities that they may have as they move forward in their lives? And you can see up here, broken down the curriculum, going as early as K to 5 and moving through the high school. And for each grade level, there is individual, they call them progress reviews. That comes from the new Part 100 document that you see from the state. Basically, that means individual meetings that counselors are having with students to review their plans. Moving forward, 6 through 9, starting in 2019, is a mandatory. We're already there. All right. Our K through 5, I know 4 and 5 are meeting with students individually. They're also adding the second step goal organizer, and then they do a career interest inventory with students as early as elementary school. Moving on to the middle school, you have the introduction to the Naviance software, which is comprehensive software that not only does the college planning for them in terms of their application process, but also has a career exploration component that we use. They're also doing a career expo that I know, Dr. Robinson, you've been a part of. I put a lot of time into that. The students have an opportunity to speak to people in the field and try to, again, get that interest and exploration started. Moving on to 9th grade, along with that progress review, they are doing some resume writing, and they actually start a little bit of that. They dabble in that in the middle school. We move on to 10th grade, they do, again, another career exploration assessment. It's kind of like that old school survey that you used to do. Now it's electronic based, and it ties the students into possible aptitudes and interests along with career interest areas that they may have. 11th and 12th grade continues with postgraduate planning, again, starting to do focus now on that, enroll, employ, or enlist. So that's our curriculum. We move into the practical opportunities. This is something that Mrs. Carmen put together over the last year. This is a kind of a wheel of opportunities for our students. If you've had a chance to look at the document and link into it, you can see for each of these different areas, we've broken it down. Dr. Robinson just show you one in particular. Can you go down just to... So we've kind of taken a look at it and identified what it is that the opportunity provides to the students, and recommendations, time that it'll take, career interest, the outcomes, and the costs. There's more specifics on each one. I don't want to go through all of them. But if we could go back to the first slide, Dr. Robinson. Just take a second to take a look at these items. A couple I wanted to highlight. We just finished our 3rd year of the Junior Executive Institute. That's a model that they do with the Chamber of Commerce of their Executive Institute, where they take young up-and-coming community members and they get them out along with some senior members of the community, and they show them a variety of different workplaces. We've done it with the student model. We've paired up with Burn Hills and Boston Spa, and we've now gone into year 3, and it's been really successful with our students. One of the other things that we'll highlight is our student job fair. This will be our 4th one coming this March. We did the first 2 years, and this is in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce. The first 2 years was held right at the Chamber. Last year, it grew to the point where we moved it into the cafeteria. And this year, because of our anticipated numbers of businesses that want to come in and hire students for either summer internships or actual jobs, we're having to move to the gym. So this thing has grown over the last few years quite a bit. Some of the other items were referenced earlier. CIP program. We currently have 50 students enrolled in that program. It's one of the bigger CIP programs in the Capital District. Our New Visions program, we've added students back onto that. That's tied in with Capital Region BOCES and Career Tech Ed. We have over 100 students involved in our Career Tech Ed program. The Shen Next with Siena College. We're working more on internal internships and summer internships, jobs within the community or within the Shenendehowa community. we know there's hundreds of different jobs that members of our Shenendehowa community have right here. Why not expose some of our students to that, whether it be over at the garage or in the accounting department? So that's something we're working on. Youth apprenticeships are programs with outside agencies. For example, Quad Graphics has come to us and said we have an internship program. We'd like to explore that with you, possibility for students to actually go in and do internships and the potential to get credits from the school if it's offered. So, Insights was the last program up there. Insights was an opportunity we had actually some of our Aspire students get on some buses and travel around and go visit some of our local businesses, again, to expose them to those opportunities.
Yep. So, and as we wrap it up, you see our pictures there. It's hard to believe that's coming in like 7 months, but it's coming quick. But so this is the end, but it's also they're crossing the finish line, but they're also in the starting blocks. So they're coming out. It's the end. One thing is start another. We want to know if they're ready when they leave here. And you saw those wheels in the beginning. There is overlap because there's overlap in the real world. We don't have a student that is just following one path or they're just doing CTE. Regardless of where our students go, we say, well, they're going to be college ready or career ready. Well, if you go into the workforce, you're going to be taking a course. Most jobs hire you and they put you through training courses. If you go to college, you'll be doing work experiences. So our students, we want to make sure they have a multitude of experiences as they go through. None of our students will fit exclusively into one category or another. And talking about some of the benefits of what we do. So if we look at the college aspect we're talking about, some of our students, their parents did not go to college. They haven't had that opportunity, but they'll get a college transcript in the mail as a junior or senior be sent to them. What a confidence booster. Wow, I can do this. That's something maybe that wasn't real to them or real to their family, but they'll get that in the mail. Now, whether it transfers dollar for dollar, we don't know. Whether it makes them more competitive, we don't know. If it's just the intangible confidence that comes with it, well, that's important too. So there's a lot of different benefits to doing that. And we always tell parents, it doesn't mean you're going to save $100,000, right? That's probably not going to happen. But there are a ton of benefits. Same thing with work experience. We're talking about the student who's going to Princeton, but if they get work experience and they realize this is not something I want to do in my career, well, that's very valuable too. So all these experiences tie into our students. If we're crossing these students across the stage and they've not had those experiences, well, then we're not doing it correctly, right? There's not silos. It's not silos in the real world. We're trying to break down silos in our schools, and that's what we're talking about here. There's a ton of overlap as our students progress through and ultimately cross the stage at SPAC every June.
Questions? Comments?
This is great. Thank you so very much.
Exciting.
Good. Great
So-
stuff.
More to come as we move forward, and thank you to all our presenters tonight for being here and putting together a lot of information for us. And we have that one personnel item, Bob, if you want Mrs. Bush to come forward.
Sure. Let's go to action items. Mrs. Bush, please come forward.
So thank you for allowing us to have staffing on this meeting. We have one new hire, a part-time AIS teacher, and a couple classified staff folks who have different promotions in the district. So there are no retirements on this agenda, but I do appreciate the indulgence for the staffing.
Okay. Can I have a motion on this one? Ms. Hoffman first, Mrs. Miller second. Comments, questions? If not, all in favor?
Thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Hoffman, Mrs. Miller, all in favor? Okay, before we do that, a couple of meetings are listed. Also, December 18th looks like the best day to have probably a very simple get-together with board members. And
December what?
18th, it would be Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
And that might also be a good day for a visit of the library, if that's possible.
It's going to be at the library?
Earlier.
No.
Oh, okay.
Second issue. We'll figure out a place for the first one.
Okay. Oh, okay, we don't have a location yet.
Yes, no location yet, but anyway, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you very much. This meeting adjourned.
Good job. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.